What if the reason your life hasn't changed is not because your dream is too big? What if it's not because the universe ignored you? What if it's not because manifestation doesn't work? What if the real reason is something much deeper, something happening inside you every single day, without you even realizing it? Because according to Neville Goddard, your reality is not created by what you want. It is created by what you accept as true about yourself. And this is the secret most people miss. They spend years trying to change their circumstances while continuing to remain the same person internally. They visualize a better life, but they continue thinking from the old identity. They desire abundance, but they speak from a mindset of lack. They want love, but they secretly believe they are not chosen. They want success, but their inner conversation constantly reminds them of failure. And then they ask, why isn't my reality changing? The answer may surprise you, because your reality is not refusing to change. It is faithfully reflecting the state you continue to occupy. Introduction. There comes a moment in every person's journey where they have to ask a difficult question. What if the problem isn't outside of me? This question is uncomfortable because it removes the ability to blame. It forces you to look inward, not with judgment, not with criticism, but with awareness. Neville Goddard spent decades teaching one powerful idea. Your imagination creates reality. But many people hear those words and misunderstand them. They think imagination means simply creating pictures in their mind. They think manifestation means repeating words until something appears. They think if they desire something strongly enough, eventually life will hand it to them. But Neville was pointing towards something much deeper. He was teaching about identity, the invisible person you assume yourself to be, the inner world you return to every day, the conversations you have when nobody is listening, the assumptions you carry without questioning. Because before anything appears in your physical world, it first exists as a state within you, the invisible blueprint. Imagine a building. Before anyone sees the final structure, there is a blueprint. The blueprint exists before the bricks, before the windows, before the doors. The physical building is simply the expression of an invisible design. Neville said your consciousness works the same way. Your outer life is an expression of your inner assumptions, your beliefs, your expectations, your self-concept, your dominant emotional state. Most people try to change the building while leaving the blueprint untouched. They change jobs, they change locations, they change relationships, they chase new opportunities, but they carry the same internal identity everywhere they go. And eventually, the same patterns appear again, different place, different people, same story. Why? Because the creator of the experience remained the same. The biggest mistake people make, the biggest mistake people make with manifestation is this. They focus on getting something instead of becoming someone. They say, I want money. So, but the deeper question is, who am I being in relation to money? Do you see money as something that is always difficult? Do you believe wealthy people are different from you? Do you feel uncomfortable receiving? Do you constantly think about what you don't have? Because if the identity underneath is, money is hard to get, then even if money appears, your mind may create ways to return to the familiar state, because humans naturally move toward what feels familiar, not always what is desired, what is familiar. Your mind prefers the known. Think about this. A person can say, I want success, but if deep inside they believe success will bring pressure, People will judge me. I might lose everything. I don't deserve it. Then success becomes emotionally unfamiliar, and the mind often tries to protect itself from unfamiliar experiences. This is why people sometimes sabotage opportunities, not because they don't want them, but because their identity has not caught up with their desire. They want the new life, but they are still emotionally loyal to the old one. The old story you keep repeating. Everyone has a story about themselves, a story about life, a story about what is possible. Some people repeat, I always struggle. I never get lucky. People always leave. Things never work out for me. I am always behind. And because they repeat this story, they begin searching for evidence to prove it. The mind is powerful. It looks for confirmation. If you believe life is against you, you will notice every rejection, every delay, every obstacle. But you will overlook moments when life supports you. Why? Because your attention follows your assumption. The question Neville Goddard would ask, what are you assuming? Not. What are you wishing? Not. What are you hoping? Not. What are you trying to force? But what are you assuming to be true? Because assumption is deeper than desire. A desire says, I want this. An assumption says, this is who I am. And the world responds differently to identity than it does to wishes. The difference between wanting and being. Imagine two people. Person one says, I want to become confident. Person two says, I am becoming a confident person. They sound similar, but internally they are different. The first person is looking at confidence as something outside themselves, something they need to obtain. The second person is adopting a new identity. They begin asking, how would a confident person think? How would a confident person act? How would a confident person respond? The second person is moving from being a spectator to being the creator. Why affirmations sometimes don't work? Many people repeat affirmations. I am successful. I am wealthy. I am loved. But while saying these words, another voice says, no, you're not. This isn't true. Nothing has changed. And this creates conflict. The words are positive, but the identity underneath remains unchanged. Neville was not teaching people to simply repeat sentences. He was teaching people to enter a state, to feel the reality of the person they want to become, the state before the thing. One of Neville's deepest teachings was, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Notice he did not say, assume the feeling of wanting, because wanting keeps you in the state of not having. If you constantly feel, I need this, I am waiting for this, I hope this comes, then your dominant state is still, I don't have it. Instead, Neville taught, experience the feeling of already being the person who has it, not pretending, not forcing, but internally accepting the mirror principle. Your reality is like a mirror. A mirror does not create your reflection. It simply shows you what is already there. If you change your expression, the mirror changes. But many people stand in front of the mirror saying, "Mirror, change first." They wait for the reflection to smile before they smile. They wait for evidence before they believe. But creation works from inside outward, not outside inward. The moment everything changes, the turning point comes when you realize you are not trying to convince reality to give you something. You are becoming someone who naturally experiences it. The question changes. Instead of, "How do I get this?" you ask, "Who must I become?" Instead of, "When will it happen?" you ask, "What state am I occupying?" Instead of, "Why is life against me?" you ask, "What story am I continuing?" That is where transformation begins. What if the thing standing between you and the life you want is not a lack of effort, not a lack of desire, not a lack of opportunities, but an identity you have been carrying for years? An identity you didn't consciously choose, because before the world shows you anything, you are already showing the world who you believe you are. Every day you send a message, not through your words, not through your wishes, but through your assumptions, through your expectations, through the quiet conversation happening inside your mind, and that conversation reveals the person you believe yourself to be. Neville Goddard called this your self-concept, the inner image you hold of yourself. And this is where many people unknowingly block their own transformation. They want a new reality, but they keep returning to the same identity. They want a new chapter, but they keep reading from the old script, the person you believe you are. Imagine someone gives you $1 million. For a moment, you feel excited. You celebrate. You think, everything has changed. But a few months later, the money is gone. Why does this happen? Because the external event changed, but the internal identity remained the same. The person who received the money was still carrying the same beliefs, the same fears, the same habits, the same relationship with abundance, the same assumptions. This is why Neville emphasized a change of feeling is a change of destiny, because your destiny follows the state you occupy. Your self-concept is your inner home. Think about your home. You naturally return there, no matter where you travel. Eventually, you go back home. Your self-concept works the same way. Your identity is your psychological home. If your inner home is, "I am not enough," "I am unlucky," "I am always struggling," "I am forgotten," then even when life gives you something different, you may unconsciously return to that familiar place, because the mind seeks what feels normal, not necessarily what feels better. Why people recreate the same patterns. Have you ever noticed something? Different relationships, same problems, different jobs, same frustrations, different opportunities, same fears. Many people think, "Why does this keep happening to me?" But a deeper question is, what part of me keeps choosing this experience? This is not about blaming yourself. It is about discovering the invisible pattern. Because if you don't know the pattern, you cannot change the pattern. The old identity has a voice. The old identity speaks quietly. It doesn't always sound negative. Sometimes it sounds logical. For example, you want to start something new. The old identity says, maybe wait until you're more prepared. Sounds reasonable, but underneath it may mean, I'm afraid to be seen trying. You want to approach someone, the old identity says, don't bother, they probably won't care. Sounds protective, but underneath, I don't want to feel rejection. You want to take a big opportunity. The old identity says, be realistic. Sounds wise, but underneath, I'm scared of becoming someone different. What? The old identity often disguises itself as safety. Your brain loves familiarity. Your brain has one major goal: to protect what it knows, even if what it knows is uncomfortable. Think about someone who grew up believing, I have to struggle to succeed. If success comes easily, it may feel suspicious. They may create unnecessary problems. They may overwork. They may doubt. Why? Because ease feels unfamiliar. The struggle feels normal, and humans often return to what feels normal. The comfort zone is not always comfortable. The word comfort zone can be misleading. Sometimes your comfort zone is anxiety. Sometimes your comfort zone is overthinking. Sometimes your comfort zone is complaining. Sometimes your comfort zone is expecting disappointment. Why? Because you've practiced it. A person can be comfortable with something painful simply because it is familiar. This is why transformation requires awareness. You have to ask, is this my truth or is this just my habit? The childhood programming. Many assumptions begin early. A child does not question everything. They absorb, they observe, they accept. A child who constantly hears, money doesn't grow on trees. Life is hard. People cannot be trusted. You are not good enough. May carry those assumptions into adulthood, not because they chose them, because they learned them. But Neville's teaching gives a powerful realization. What was learned can be unlearned. The story you inherited does not have to become the story you continue. You are not your past programming. Your past influenced you, but it does not own you. There is a difference. A person can say, this is how I was taught to think, without saying, this is who I am forever. Awareness creates distance, and distance creates choice. The moment you can observe a belief, you are no longer completely controlled by it. The inner conversation reveals the identity. Pay attention to what you say when nobody is listening. That is where the truth appears. Not the social version, not the version you show people, the private version. What do you say after a mistake? I'm learning. Or I'm hopeless. What do you say when someone succeeds? That's possible. Or people like me don't get that. What do you say when an opportunity appears? I can try. Or I probably won't succeed. Your answers reveal your current identity. The secret question. Instead of asking, why isn't my manifestation working? Ask, would the person who already has this desire think this way? This question changes everything. Would the confident version of you constantly seek approval? Would the successful version of you constantly call yourself a failure? Would the loved version of you believe they are impossible to love? Would the abundant version of you constantly expect lack? The answer reveals the gap between desire and identity. Most people focus on the desire, but the real transformation happens in the gap between who you are practicing being and who you want to become. For example, you desire success, but your identity says, I'm someone who procrastinates. The work is not simply getting success. The work is becoming someone who naturally takes action. You desire love, but your identity says, people leave me. Uh, the work is not chasing love. The work is becoming someone who knows they are worthy of love. Stop asking for a new life with an old identity. Imagine trying to fit new clothes over old clothes. Eventually, something has to change. A new reality requires a new version of you, not a fake version, not pretending, a deeper version, the version that has always been possible. The power of revision. Neville taught a powerful practice called revision. Revision means mentally revisiting experiences and changing your relationship with them, not denying what happened, but refusing to let the past control your identity. Maybe someone rejected you, the old story. I'm not wanted. The revised story. That experience taught me my value does not depend on someone else's choice. Maybe you failed. Old story. I'm a failure. New story. That was a lesson, not a definition. You are changing the meaning, and meaning shapes identity. Your future self is waiting. Think about the person you want to become. They are not a completely different person. They are you, without the limitations you accepted, the confident you, the peaceful you, the successful you, the fulfilled you. That version already exists as a possibility. Your job is not to create them from nothing. Your job is to move toward them. The moment you stop seeking validation. One of the biggest identity shifts happens when you stop asking, am I enough? And start saying, I decide that I am enough. Not arrogance, not superiority, self acceptance. Because someone who knows their value moves differently, they choose differently, they communicate differently, they tolerate differently, they create differently. The world does not respond to your wishes, it responds to your state. A person saying, I want success because I am not successful, is living from lack. A person saying, I am becoming successful and I act from that identity, is moving from possibility. The words are similar, the state is different. The first step to change. Tonight, observe yourself. Don't judge, just observe. Ask, what identity am I repeating? What story do I keep telling? What assumption do I keep returning to? Then ask, is this the person I want to continue being? Because awareness is the beginning of transformation. You cannot change what you refuse to see. There is a moment when everything changes, not when you receive the thing you wanted, not when the money arrives, not when the relationship appears, not when the opportunity finally comes. The real change happens before that. It happens when you stop seeing your desire as something far away, and you begin seeing yourself as someone who naturally belongs with it. Because the biggest secret Neville Goddard taught was not about getting something, it was about becoming someone. Most people approach life from this position. When I get it, then I will feel different. When I succeed, then I will become confident. When someone loves me, then I will feel worthy. Ah, when my circumstances change, then I will finally be happy. But Neville taught the opposite. Change who you are being first, and your experience begins to follow. The world does not create your identity. Your identity influences the world you experience. The trap of waiting. Waiting seems normal. Almost everyone does it. They say, when I have more money, I'll relax. When I find the right person, I'll feel loved. When I become successful, I'll believe in myself. But notice what is hidden inside these statements. They all contain the same assumption. I am not complete yet. And if your dominant state is incompleteness, you continue experiencing life from that position. You continue searching. You continue chasing. You continue looking outside yourself for permission to feel whole. Neville called this living in the state of desire rather than the state of fulfillment. Desire versus fulfillment. There is nothing wrong with desire. Desire is natural. Desire shows you what you want to experience. But there is a difference between wanting something and mentally occupying the state of having it. A person who wants money thinks, I need money because I don't have enough. A person who feels abundant thinks, I am someone who creates value and opportunities. A person who wants love thinks, I hope someone chooses me. A person who feels loved thinks, I am someone who is worthy of love. The external goal may look similar, but the internal identity is completely different. The power of who would I be? This is one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself. Who would I be if this was already done? Not, how do I get there? Not, what if it never happens? Not, when will it happen? Instead, who would I be? Imagine your desire is already fulfilled. How would you walk? How would you think? How would you speak? How would you make decisions? How would you treat yourself? Because that person is the version of you you are practicing becoming. The future self does not beg. Think about someone who already has what they want, someone who is confident, someone who is secure, someone who knows their worth. Do they constantly ask, am I enough? Do they constantly check, does everyone approve of me? Do they constantly worry, what if I lose everything? Or probably not. Their inner conversation is different. Their identity is different. They don't chase because they trust. They don't force because they know. They don't panic because they have developed stability, living from the end. One of Neville Goddard's most famous concepts was live from the end. Many people misunderstand this. They think it means pretending. They think it means ignoring reality. It does not. Living from the end means choosing your inner position. It means asking, what would it feel like if I already knew everything was working out? What would it feel like if I trusted myself completely? What would it feel like if I was no longer controlled by fear? Then you begin practicing that feeling, not for 5 minutes, not only during meditation, but throughout your day, the difference between acting and being. There is a difference between pretending to be confident and becoming confident. Pretending says, I hope nobody notices I'm afraid. Being says, I can feel fear and still move forward. Pretending says, I need to convince people I'm successful. Being says, I know what I'm building. Pretending is external. Being is internal. Neville was not teaching performance, he was teaching transformation. Your inner conversation creates your state. Let's look at two people facing the same problem. Person A loses an opportunity. Their inner conversation, of course, this happened. Nothing works for me. I'm always unlucky. Person B loses the same opportunity. Their inner conversation, this hurts. Uh, but this is not the end. I, I'll find another way. Same event, different identity, different state, different future. Your state is your signal. Every day you are broadcasting something, not with words, with the state you repeatedly occupy. A state of fear says, I need protection. Or a state of lack says, there is never enough. A state of confidence says, I can handle what comes. A state of abundance says, possibilities exist. When your dominant state influences your choices influence your actions influence your results. Why forcing doesn't work. Many people try to force manifestation. They repeat affirmations hundreds of times. They visualize desperately. They constantly check for results. But underneath all of that is one message. I don't have it yet. The energy behind the practice matters. Someone who trusts does not constantly check. Someone who knows does not constantly question. Someone who is accepted does not constantly chase. The goal is not more effort. The goal is a different relationship with your desire, the quiet confidence of assumption. Think about someone who knows their flight is booked. They don't wake up every morning wondering, did I really buy the ticket? They know. The same confidence applies internally. The assumption becomes, this is possible for me. I am becoming this person. My life can change. Not because you have all the evidence, but because you have chosen a new identity. Your body follows your mind. Your internal conversation affects your physical behavior. A person who believes, I am powerless, may avoid opportunities. They may hesitate. They may stay silent. A person who believes, I can figure things out, moves differently. They try, they learn, they adapt. This is why changing the inner world is so powerful. It changes the way you participate in the outer world. The miracle of normalization. The biggest shift happens when your desired state becomes normal. At first, I am confident, feels like a statement. Later, I am confident, feels natural. At first, I deserve good things, feels uncomfortable. Later, I deserve good things, I feels obvious. This is the process. You are making a new identity familiar. Stop asking, am I there yet? One of the biggest mistakes is constantly measuring yourself. Am I confident yet? Am I successful yet? Has my life changed yet? How? This keeps your attention on the absence. Instead, ask, am I practicing the person I want to become? Because transformation is built through repetition. Every time you choose the new response, you strengthen the new identity. Small moments create big changes. People think transformation happens in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it does, but often it happens quietly. It happens when You stop reacting immediately. You forgive yourself faster. You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing approval. You take action despite fear. You speak to yourself differently. You choose patience. These small moments are evidence of a new self concept. The old self will test you. When you begin changing, the old identity may appear stronger. You may suddenly experience doubt, fear, resistance, old memories. This does not mean you are failing. It means the old pattern is being challenged. When light enters, you suddenly notice everything: the dust, the corners, the things hidden. The light did not create the mess, it revealed it. Awareness is the beginning of change. The new response. When the old identity appears, don't fight. Don't say, "Why am I thinking this?" Don't judge yourself. Instead, say, "That's the old story." Then choose again. Old story. I'm not lucky. New story. Things can change. Old story. I always fail. New story. I am learning and growing. Old story. Nobody chooses me. New story. I choose myself. The most important relationship. The relationship you have with yourself influences every other relationship. If you constantly criticize yourself, you search for others to prove your worth. If you trust yourself, you stop needing constant approval. The strongest manifestation is not simply getting things, it is becoming someone who knows they are worthy before anything arrives. The final shift. The question is no longer, how do I make my reality change? The question becomes, how do I become the person whose reality naturally reflects what I desire? That is the missing secret. You don't chase the reflection. You change what creates the reflection. You don't beg the mirror. You change yourself. After everything you've learned, there is still one question remaining. A question almost everyone eventually asks. How do I maintain this new version of myself? Oh, because changing for one day is easy. Feeling inspired for 1 hour is easy. Watching a powerful video and feeling motivated is easy. But what happens tomorrow when the old thoughts return, when circumstances challenge you, when the outside world still looks exactly the same? This is where the real transformation begins. Because Neville Goddard was not teaching a temporary mental exercise. He was teaching a new way of living, a way where your inner world becomes so familiar that the old version of you no longer feels like home. The secret is not forcing yourself to believe. The secret is becoming so comfortable with the new identity that returning to the old one feels unnatural. The power of repetition. Everything you are today was built through repetition. Your fears, your beliefs, your confidence, your habits, your expectations. Nobody woke up one morning and suddenly became insecure. Nobody woke up one morning and suddenly developed confidence. Identity is built slowly, through repeated thoughts, repeated emotions, repeated actions, repeated assumptions. This means something important. If your current reality was created through repetition, your future reality can also be created through repetition. The question is, what are you repeatedly becoming? Your mental diet. Neville often spoke about the importance of your mental diet. A mental diet is simply, what thoughts are you allowing to live inside you? What conversations are you replaying? What assumptions are you feeding? Many people carefully choose what they eat physically, but they consume anything mentally. They spend hours watching fear. They replay old arguments. They imagine worst-case scenarios. They constantly search for problems. Then they wonder why peace feels difficult. Your mind is a garden. Whatever you repeatedly plant eventually grows. You cannot create a new future while worshipping the old one. Think about this. You say you want a new life, but every day you revisit the old pain, the old rejection, the old mistakes, the old identity. You keep telling the same story. You keep explaining why things are difficult. You keep proving why you cannot change. Then your mind receives a confusing message. I want something new, but I am emotionally committed to the old. A new reality requires a new relationship with the past. Revision, changing your relationship with the past. Neville taught a powerful technique called revision. Revision is not pretending history never happened. It is changing the meaning you attach to what happened. Because your past does not control you through events. It controls you through the story you continue telling about those events. For example, someone rejected you. Old story. I wasn't good enough. New story. That experience helped me understand my value. You failed. Old story. I always fail. New story. That experience showed me what I needed to improve. You were abandoned. Old story. People always leave me. New story. I learned to choose relationships that honor me. The event happened, but the identity attached to it can change. The night before sleep, the creative moment. One of Neville's most famous teachings was the state akin to sleep, often called SATs. The moments before sleep are powerful because the mind becomes relaxed, the analytical mind becomes quieter, the imagination becomes more receptive. Neville taught using this state to impress the subconscious mind. But remember, the goal is not desperation. The goal is acceptance. The SATs practice. Before sleeping, close your eyes, relax your body, release the day. Then imagine a simple scene, not a complicated movie, a short moment that implies your desire is already fulfilled. For example, you receive congratulations. Someone says, I'm so happy for you. You feel successful, you feel loved, you feel peaceful, you feel proud. The important part is not the picture, the important part is the feeling of this is natural, this belongs to me, this is who I am. Why people fail with visualization. Many people visualize from a place of desperation. They imagine because they are afraid. They imagine because they feel incomplete. They imagine because they want to escape the present. But the deeper state is, I need this because I don't have it. Instead, imagine from acceptance. Imagine because it feels natural. Imagine because you are exploring a reality you are becoming familiar with. There is a huge difference. The final test, when nothing seems to change. This is where most people quit. They say, I tried. It didn't work. Nothing happened. But often, something did happen. The first change is usually invisible. You become calmer. You become less reactive. You think differently. You make different choices. You stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop repeating old patterns. The external world often follows the internal shift. But many people quit during the invisible stage. They stop planting because they cannot see the tree yet. Trusting the invisible. A seed underground looks like nothing is happening. But underneath the surface, A process is occurring. Growth is happening where you cannot see. Your identity works the same way. Every time you choose a new thought, every time you return to faith, every time you refuse the old story, you are strengthening something invisible. Stop looking for constant proof. One of the biggest traps is becoming addicted to evidence. You say, I'll believe when I see it. But Neville taught the opposite. You believe first, then your experience begins to reflect that belief. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to make current circumstances the final authority. Your current situation is a snapshot, not the entire movie. Your world will test your new identity. When you change internally, life may present situations that challenge your new state. Someone may criticize you, something may go wrong, a plan may fail, an old fear may appear. This is not punishment, it is an opportunity. Life is asking, are you really becoming this person? Can you remain confident when things are uncertain? Can you remain peaceful when things are delayed? Can you trust yourself without immediate proof? This is where identity becomes real, the person who no longer chases. A powerful transformation happens when you stop chasing. You stop chasing approval. You stop chasing signs. You stop chasing validation. You stop chasing a specific outcome from fear. Why? Because you have discovered something. What belongs to me does not require me to destroy my peace. You can desire something deeply while remaining whole without it. That is freedom, the final level of assumption. At the beginning, you practice a new assumption. Later, the assumption becomes natural. Eventually, you no longer think, I need to believe this. You simply live from it. A confident person doesn't repeat, I am confident, every 5 minutes. They naturally behave confidently. A loved person doesn't constantly prove, I am loved. They accept it. An abundant person doesn't obsess, I hope there is enough. They think differently. The goal is naturalness. Your new identity statements. From today forward, your inner conversation can become, I trust myself. I don't need to fear every unknown. I am capable of adapting. I am becoming someone I respect. My past does not define me. I can create a new story. I do not need permission to believe in myself. I can expect good things. I am not chasing, I am becoming. The moment you realize you were the change, eventually you look back and you realize something surprising. The biggest manifestation was not the thing you received. The biggest manifestation was the person you became while waiting. Because along the way, you became stronger, you became calmer, you became more aware, you became someone who trusted themselves. And that person can create again and again and again. The final message. Narrator, maybe you have been waiting for your life to change, waiting for the opportunity, waiting for the relationship, waiting for the breakthrough, waiting for the sign. But maybe the question was never, when will my life change? Maybe the question was, when will I stop being the person who expects it not to? Because the moment you change the person inside, everything begins to shift. Not because you forced reality, but because you became aligned with a different experience. Final cinematic ending. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine meeting the future version of yourself, the version who made it through, the version who no longer worries the way you do now, the version who looks back and says, "You had no idea how close you were. You almost gave up too early. You thought nothing was changing, but everything was changing inside you first." That future version of you is not a stranger. It is a possibility, a state, a version waiting to be accepted. So today, choose your conversation carefully, choose your assumptions carefully, choose the identity you return to, because every thought is a vote, every feeling is a direction, every inner conversation is a step toward becoming. Final line. Narrator, your reality has not changed yet, because perhaps you were waiting for reality to change first. But the missing secret Neville Goddard revealed was this: the world does not change to show you who you are. The world changes when you finally decide who you are.